Hi there, I'm Janine. Welcome to my channel. Today's video is about something that I think is the heart of the sewing community and what makes this community quite unique. Something that you don't see in many other social organizations, groups, and that is that we very generously share the knowledge that we have, because we want everyone around us to enjoy what they're doing and to improve their sewing. So we're going to talk about some tips that were shared with me that improved a project, and now I'm going to pass them along to you. It's Friday Sews for Friday, May 31st, 2024. I first want to thank Jen from Today and Jen Sewing Room for generously allowing all of us to be part of the hashtag Friday Sews community, so we can connect with you, whether it's every Friday, every 2 Fridays, or every 3 or 4. Today I'm wearing a Cashmerette Club brattle top that I made late last fall. The weather is finally turning to warm here, so I can actually start wearing some short-sleeved tops. As with all my videos, I've put chapters down below, so if you want to skip to a different part of the video, you just have to click. As I was saying at the beginning, I think sewing is a very unique activity because those who sew are not in competition with each other. If we know how to do something better, we're happy to share it with someone else, because chances are good we're not trying to be better than the other person. We're not trying to sell things. I know some of us enter competitions, but most of the time we in the domestic sewing community are just making things for ourselves, for our family, for our friends. And what I've found is most of the time we learn how to do something better and we're really excited to share it with other people. We want them to benefit from what we learned. Now, before I get too far, I want to say that I know that there are some tips and tricks that are very closely aligned with people, like Nancy Zeman's pivot and slide, the Palmer Plesh fitting method, and by sharing these tips, I'm not saying that Ron Collins came up with them or that I came up with them. They're just things that I learned, that he shared with me, that I'm going to pass along to you. You may well have learned some of these tips elsewhere, but I hope that there's something new that you're going to learn about in this video. Last week, I went to a 3-day sewing retreat at a local store, and the retreat was taught by Ron Collins, who's a Vogue menswear pattern designer. Ron teaches a lot of classes at this particular facility. I'm going to put a link down below because he does have more upcoming classes. He is also teaching at Saskatchewan Stitchers, which is supposed to be a really good sewing event in the province of Saskatchewan, and that's this summer. Maybe it's later in June. And then he is also the co-host of Power Sewing with Sandra Bretsina. And I'm going to link that channel down below because they constantly load new videos of old content from, I guess they were doing those videos 20 years ago. Anyway, Ron was the instructor. I went to one of his retreats in January, and at that one I worked on my lined wool French jacket. This time around, I wanted to sew things that are more everyday. So I took 3 projects with me: a pair of jeans, a t-shirt, and a woven top. I only got to the jeans and the t-shirt. Today, I'm going to share with you the tips that I learned sewing the jeans. I'm not going to show you sewing the jeans. I'm not going to walk through the whole jeans process. If you want me to do that later, maybe I can record a video of it, because I am going to sew another pair of these jeans. I will show you just the tips, and I'm going to pop up pictures of the jeans and of me wearing them. The jean pattern that I used is the Cashmerette Club Creston jeans. I used this pattern a few months ago, and made a pair of jeans that I was very happy with. And I wear those jeans all the time. But I've never been satisfied with the fit, which is why I took them to this class. I wanted to have the fit improved and also some of the techniques improved upon. The fabric that I used is the basic denim from Loiseau Fabrics here in Calgary. And it's a cotton poly blend with just a smidge of spandex in it. The previous pair that I made, the denim has more spandex and it's also lighter weight. This denim that I used is 10 ounces or 280 grams per square meter. So I think that's quite a heavy denim, although apparently a lot of people sew with like 14-ounce denim. I don't think I could wear that anymore. Maybe when I was 18 I could have worn that. So I cut out the jeans and went to the retreat, and you just start working on things and then Ron comes over and helps you with different things. I mentioned to Ron that I was going to be a little bit slow because I was going to be switching out needles and thread for top stitching. And like a lot of jean patterns, you sew a seam, you press it, you finish the seam allowances, and then you top stitch. It's a lot of steps, and if you're always switching out needles and thread, it adds a lot of time to the process. His recommendation was that I use a triple stitch. Most machines have a triple stitch. It's the one that's 3 little stitches together. So we set up my machine with a denim needle and this silk finish cotton thread, and that's how I sewed everything. I would sew a seam and I would just switch the stitch type to the triple stitch, lengthen it. I used a 3.5 millimeter length, and then I would do my top stitching. That was tip number 1. That saved a considerable amount of time, and I would definitely use that stitch again when I'm trying to top stitch. I would also use this particular thread again, and there are probably other brands that are the same that have a silk finish. If you know of some, make a note down below so we all know. I always use poly thread, I don't know why, and he said it was perfectly fine to use this cotton thread. That was tip 1. Tip 2 was something that if I had not pre-cut my fabric, I would have been able to take advantage of this tip, but I had pre-cut the fabric. He looked at the zipper that I got for my jeans, and it was a regular metal jeans zipper, and the teeth are quite wide. It takes up more space than, say, your average pants zipper, poly pants zipper. His recommendation was, here's tip number 2, if you're using a denim or a jeans zipper, make your zipper extensions 1/2 inch wider. Make both of them 1/2 inch wider when you're cutting out the front pieces, because that gives you more room for top stitching. So you're not just barely catching the edge of the zipper extension when you top stitch. Simple little tip. I wound up using a different zipper because I didn't have that extra space, and I found a metal zipper that was more narrow and used that instead. But tip 2, if you're using a jean zipper that has the wide teeth, make your zipper extensions 1/2 inch wider so you've got more space to top stitch. Tip 3 is also about zippers. You know, when we cut out our jeans or our pants and we have that mark that we stitch up to and then we baste, when his recommendation was, when you are placing the zipper down in place before you stitch it, instead of having the end of the zipper on the dot, which is what we're instructed to do, move the zipper up 1/2 inch higher. Why? Because that also gives you more space to top stitch around the zipper. So you're not going to come down to the bottom of the zipper and turn and then hammer your needle into the stopper at the bottom of the zipper and break your needle and throw off the timing of your sewing machine. That was his recommendation, and that's what I did. I've got a little picture I'm going to pop up, but here on the jeans, there is no hole, there's no problem because I moved it up 1/2 inch higher. Because of course you're top stitching everything down, so you're not going to have a hole in the front because your zipper stopper at the bottom is 1/2 inch higher than where you stitched to. So that's tip number 3. Tip number 4 is also zipper related. There were a lot of tips about zippers. On this particular pair of jeans, and like a lot of jeans, there is a fly shield here on the inside. And on this particular pattern, I don't know if other patterns are like this, you stitch the fly shield to the side of the zipper extension and then it just kind of flaps there. Ron's recommendation was that when this is the inside zipper of course, when you're doing this line of stitching down the edge here on the zipper, have your fly shield already installed and just stitch through the front of the jeans, the zipper, and the fly shield. And then it's much more secure. Tip number 5 is a bar tack. I never actually knew how to set up a bar tack, and I would see in sewing directions to sew a bar tack. What's a bar tack? How do I get that row of stitching that looks substantial and is a zigzag? What's the setting? So for the bar tack, I used a zigzag that was 2 millimeters wide and 0.4 millimeters long, and that seemed to work really well. Not too thick, not too skimpy. Tip number 6 is the waistband. I'm going to explain this to you as well as I can. I took a bunch of pictures. I've got a little bit of video that I'm going to insert, but I took pictures and I've put instructions on each of the pictures. It isn't difficult. It sounds way harder than it is. Makes a huge difference. You know, normally when you sew a pair of pants, you've got the lining of the waistband and the facing of the waistband and the waistband. And you wind up with a seam right at the edge of the waistband, and there's a lot of bulk and it's really difficult to sew the buttonhole. Ron showed me how to do it so you have no seam there at the corner and you have no bulk, and it makes it so much easier to do the button and the buttonhole. When you cut your waistband, make the waistband 3 inches longer for the front center, or wherever it's meeting, the side center, the back center, wherever you've got that overlap. Make the main fabric 3 inches longer. Leave your waistband facing the exact way it was on the pattern piece. Cut it that way. Stitch your waistband on and then stitch the facing on and stop where you're attaching the facing. So you're about midpoint on from the end. So this is the front center, so midpoint on the body there. So you've got several inches between where you've finished attaching the facing and the corner. Of course, this is all stitched here. So now we have the facing stitched to midpoint of the front piece. And what we do is we fold back the main waistband, and I've marked, that's the 3 inch extension there, and you can see that that lines up with this would be the zipper where there's the fold there. So I fold that back 3 inches, and then I take the facing and I bring it up, and I have measured where there's a 1 inch seam allowance on the facing and on the waistband. And what I'm going to do is match those two together, flat, make sure those lines match up, and I'm going to stitch that. And when we turn this right side out, this is what the inside's going to look like. So I'm going to press this, I'm going to trim off the excess seam allowance, and then I'm going to just finish stitching along the top. This is what it looks like before I have stitched it. So this is what the inside will look like. I'm just going to finish stitching there. Finish stitching along the top of the waistband, and we're going to flip this, trim it, now I'm going to just give this a press. So this is the right side. This is where the zipper would be. You can see the only bulk that's in there is the seam allowance. This is what the inside looks like. This is what you wind up with. You see there's no seam here at the end, so it's super easy to put in the buttonhole. There's no excess fabric there. Yeah, I know my buttonhole is a little crooked, but it's very smooth. So that was tip number 6. In terms of fitting the jeans, we took 3/4 of an inch off on the back center seam, and added a center back seam in the waistband. That also gives you more options if you ever need to let things in or out, or take things in, let things out, or take things in. And then we just took off 1/4 inch on the sides from the bottom of the pocket bag to the knee. And those were the only changes we made for fitting, because this fabric is heavier and stiffer than the fabric I used the last time. Something else I did on this pair, now that we're looking at them, I never put the belt loops on because I never wear a belt, but on the back I did a little bit of embroidery on the pocket. And this was not what I wanted back here, but I had a misadventure with my embroidery machine, and so we're now thinking that maybe it's time to get a new embroidery machine. So I found a pattern I really love that I will be using on the next pair that I make, on the pockets for the next pair that I make. In my next video, I'll share with you what I learned when I sewed my t-shirt at the sewing retreat. I will also tell you about how I did with my Me Made May vow, and I think I have a couple of other things that I've sewed that I will show you. Life, well, we've had a lot of rain. Everything is very green. I did manage to get everything planted that I wanted to plant. It's mostly just pots and a few things in the ground, annuals, that sort of thing. And now it's just time to enjoy when the sun comes out and everything starts to grow. We have my mom's memorial service on Saturday, and we're all looking forward to that. We're going out to one of her favorite places in the mountains. Hope the weather is good. My sister and I went out there the other day and it was rather chilly, so it will not be a sundress event. Your presence here is what makes this little community thrive, and I am so very grateful that you spend time with me. I try to keep up with the comments. I'm also struggling trying to get other things done and spend less time online. And I know that a lot of you share that same challenge all the time. I do read all the comments. It might take me a while to reply, but I absolutely know that you're there, and I appreciate all of you hanging around with me. I hope you have a great week and a good weekend, and I will see you, I'm pretty sure I'll see you next Friday. Thanks so much for watching. Take care.